What's happening, everybody? John Hendricks here for Saints News Network, coming at you with another Saints training camp recap, day 20. We are almost to the end. We've got 2 more practices. Of course, we'll see what happens after Sunday's game against the Texans. But before we dive into all the goodness from today's inside session on Thursday, we got to give a shout out to Justin Burgess of BenPro for sponsoring today's show. Again, if you have a business in the greater New Orleans region and you need help with employee benefits or health insurance, Justin Burgess is your man. Give him a call, 504-888-8038. He will get you taken care of. Known him for a long time. Very professional, easy to deal with. You definitely want to get your business in check. He's a guy that can help you out. Justin Burgess, 504-888-8038. Powering us all the way through training camp. So day 20, inside session, like we mentioned. Let's start off, as we always do, talking a little bit about attendance, and we got to see a lot. Again, you guys know, see my notebook, a lot of pages on here, a lot of fun stuff that we saw. Start with before attendance. Steve Gleason was in attendance. So one of the things that I picked up on and that we kind of noticed is that Saints are bringing a lot of legends in, here and there during their practices. Today was Steve Gleason. The other day was Lance Moore. They've had Jonathan Vilma in the building. Obviously, Drew was there at some point. Just legends of the game, Saints greats that have been here. So I think that's pretty cool that they do that. But talking about practice attendance, the first one we'll start with is Rashid Shaheed. He was returning to practice today, taking part in stretch and individual drills up to a point. So he's taking some swing passes out to the left, during some individual drills with the wide receivers. Then that was it for him. So good sign seeing him. He's coming back from that groin injury. Welcome sight. And now as far as who wasn't there, Marshon Lattimore was not. Now, here's the thing to know about Marshon Lattimore. According to Dennis Allen, of course, there's nothing significant going on with his knee, but they're treating his knee with some medication, making sure that he rests up a little bit. Again, nothing significant. Again, we kind of talked about this, that the plan probably should be to shut him down a little bit, but making sure that he's going to be right before the season starts. So I wouldn't expect to see him anymore for the rest of training camp. Obviously, when we get into week 1, that's when we really pay attention, and that's when things matter. So that's a big one that was missing. Other than that, the usual suspects that we've come to expect. Taysom Hill, oblique strain. Tre'Quan Smith, hadn't seen him since day 9. That's with a groin. We talked about Lattimore. Kirk Merritt, also with that hamstring. It seems that he's being bothered by that again. Not a pretty good look for him on the final roster outlook. We'll see what happens. Darrell Williams has been out of practice. Ryan Connolly with the significant knee injury. Landon Young with the MCL injury. Jesse James with the groin. Hadn't seen him since day 12. And then Lynn Bowden Jr. hasn't been on the field, too, for undisclosed reasons, which is giving way for guys like Shaq Davis and Jontre Kirkland to make a name for themselves. We'll get into that a little bit more in a bit. Calvin Throckmorton was there right before stretch, and he went off again as part of the rehab process. He hurt his ribs during Sunday's game against the Chargers. So, it's one of those things where it happens. Cam Jordan came back, Ryan Ramczyk, they had veteran rest days. A.T. Perry is back. He had an illness the day before that he was dealing with. So those types of things happen. But look, going in a game against the Texans, I doubt the starters are going to play. We talked to Demario Davis. He's not going to play in such on Sunday. We weren't expecting that. And, of course, Dennis Allen kind of hinted that. But, look, the Texans are going to roll out C.J. Stroud. We'll see how that kind of works. I would expect that you get some pretty big, decent guys that are going to be in the lineup. I would expect to see guys like Trevor Penning playing. Again, we've talked about it, very similar to probably what we saw against the Chargers. That's what we can expect here against the Texans for the preseason finale, which, again, oh, by the way, nationally televised broadcast on Fox. You're going to be able to tune into it, and they've had the past 2 on an NFL Network. So kind of crazy how that's all worked out. But going to today, defense looked really strong. We'll get into that a little bit more. But Michael Thomas, super active today. There's been a lot said about Michael Thomas. Let's just start there. And look, you guys, if you've been looking at the recaps, you've been listening in to the guys who've been plugged in since day 1, all these things, have seen him since, back in minicamp. Mike looks good. He's on the rise. We talked about how he's getting in and out of his breaks real easily. Cuts look good. I'm not telling you, and I think this is where things are blown up, is we're not expecting Mike to be 2018 Mike, right? It's just not going to happen. But I still think he can be a super effective receiver in this offense. And so look, I think it's not out of the realm of possibilities that they have two 1,000-yard receivers when it's all said and done. Olave is the guy that I think they're going to feed him a lot, but Michael Thomas, super active today. He caught the first 3 passes in 7-on-7. All 3 quarterbacks went 5 of 5, with it, and take that with a grain of salt, but it was really interesting seeing that. Another thing to point out, we talk about it, and again, go to Saints.media. All the formations, all the details are on there. If you want to know every single thing that happened at practice in great detail, you're not going to find a more thorough write-up than what I have. I'm just going to be honest with you. And, that's not gloating or anything, but I make sure to make it a point that you feel like you were at training camp practices and that you know everything that we know to kind of help. Now, is it in the full context of everything we see? Probably not, in some aspects, but gives you the gist of who's doing well, who's not doing so well, who's doing this, who's doing that. That's what you would come to expect, right? And so, we talked about lineups. Again, I wrote about it the other day, but, Trevor Penning, James Hurst, Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, and Ryan Ramczyk, that should be your starting offensive line for this first week, at least. Andres Pete's been on the second team left guard. Nick Saldiveri's playing right guard, second team. Storm Norton's right tackle. He's probably the primary guy behind him. Lewis Kidd's been playing some left tackle. Max Garcia is a reserve offensive lineman. He's played at center some, but he also can play interior. So it's going to be fascinating how they put this final roster together. I think they keep 9 offensive linemen. We'll probably dedicate a little bit of a show to that because, they got to make all these moves before Tuesday. And when they get here, it's going to be really tense and tough and finding out what's going to happen with this final roster. But I'm really excited to see it. 7-7s were good. First team period. Nothing really crazy to talk about other than Michael Thomas getting another catch and such. You got another catch for Winston and Carr. And it's all over the field. It's intermediate, it's short, it's different routes, drag routes, crossers, slants, deep ends, all these types of things, sideline, flats, all those types of things we're seeing from Michael Thomas. That's what we want to see. One of the things before we move into the other thing is Alvin Kamara. There's a picture up on the Saints social media, but he's got all the footballs in his hand. He's got 4 of them in his hand. So one of the things is they had the machine that shoots out all the footballs and stuff. They simulate punts. And so he ended up filling one of the first punts, and then he filled another one. And he ended up filling 4 in a row. And each time, like once he had the first one, he filled the second, the third, and the fourth with one hand, and he had all the footballs stacked up. So it's kind of crazy. He had tried to get number 5, wasn't able to corral it in. I thought that was really interesting to see. Just crazy how good Alvin Kamara is. That's the biggest takeaway. When you move to the second part of team drills, it was more of you're looking at red zone. Actually, that was looking at my notes. You got 7s, team 1, then team red zone. That's kind of where you're looking at. Good defensive stance. I think, they had a couple things from the 5 and the 3. Carr ran in a play for a touchdown. Good coverage by the defense, but Carr went through all his reads and progressions. And then they had a Kendre Miller run for a touchdown from the 3-yard line. And then they held really tight on a Michael Thomas play to 1, and then also a Shaq Davis play that the officials officially ruled as not a touchdown from the 2. So good to see some of this red zone defense. And so, again, if you want to get all the details, go on Saints News Network, si.com/NFL/Saints, Saints.media, all the ways to find out all the information, to go to John J. Hendricks on Twitter. It's all below. You see all the things. That's where you're going to find all your information from. Lucas Kroll had a really pretty decent day. He had caught a touchdown in red zone, and then he had one of the craziest plays that happened in team. They were working right before they were doing like a full series sequence and such. And so, look, there were some big hookups today. Shaq Davis, A.T. Perry, guys that we're used to talking about. Jimmy Graham was involved. He looked good again for another day. And so I think he's somebody that we don't talk about. But Kroll, pretty much like it was Winston playing quarterback, threw up one of those. It's kind of like a prayer night. It was a throw to the end zone, trying to make something happen. So Kroll and the defender didn't see exactly who. That was one thing because of our vantage point. So go up, pass is tipped up, pass broken up. Kroll ends up on his backside, and then somehow the ball comes down and he gets a touchdown out of it. Super crazy sequence. Really interested to see that. Again, if I had to replay on it, that would be something I'd want to see again. But look, We talked about some picks today and some turnovers. Look, Alontae Taylor had a good one when they were working in the series. It actually shut down Derek Carr's drive. He was marching his way down to the end zone, throws it. Alontae, he wanted Chris Olave in the end zone. Alontae makes a really good play, jumps up, gets the pick, has some good return yardage. Look, they worked him out some at kick returner today too. I think it's if he gets a pick, I think he's gone. I think he can get easily turn extra yards on a pick, an interception. Guy's super quick, fast. I think maybe if you saw him in the kick return game, that might be a way to get him involved a little bit more. Not saying it will, but something that we see in practice may translate, may not. But Derek Carr got picked off there. And then, look, you had the defense really played tough. Peyton Turner having some sacks. Malcolm Roach showing up really big in run stops. Tano Passignon getting pressures afterwards. Carl Granderson getting some sacks. Isaiah Foskey, Brian Brisset starting to see some good back-to-back practices for Isaiah Foskey. We talked about on Monday 19, building upon yesterday. That's hopefully what you want to see. And so, look, I think he doesn't have as much pressure on him because he's a second-round pick. You didn't overdraft him like you might have done with Marcus Davenport or Peyton Turner. But, look, that's the type of stuff that you want to see out of Foskey. Again, he's not going to be that high in the pecking order to start, but down the line, he's going to be somebody that they might actually rely on. And then Demario Davis made a really big stop on fourth down to stop Derek Carr in that offense. And then Anthony Johnson made a nice little pick to close out team drills today with Jameis Winston throwing it. He made the ball that Winston probably shouldn't have thrown. It was intended for A.T. Perry deep. And then it's a pretty easy one for Anthony Johnson. Marcus May also had a chance at a pick in one of the periods. He dropped it. And so, look, another day, more turnovers for the Saints. That's good to see. We want to keep seeing those, and hopefully we see another game with some of the turnovers here in the Superdome. But, look, no special teams kicking today. That Will Lutz, I gave my thoughts on Lutz and Groupie, and then obviously Headley and Blake Gillikin. But, we'll kind of check and see how that goes. But another good day of practice. The big things, Shaheed returning to practice on a limited basis. Same thing with Calvin Throckmorton, that he was there, limited basis. And then Marshawn Lattimore not being there, but nothing significant. But, look, we're getting closer and closer to this thing happening. I'm so excited for this regular season. Again, I see Vegas kind of sleeping on this team, 9.5 wins. I took the over. In my official record predictions, I took 11-6. I think this team's too talented. I think this division is very bad. In a lot of ways, look, I'm not sold on a lot of these the teams over here. Can pick flaws out of all of them. I think Tampa's at the bottom. I think Carolina's probably next on that totem pole. And then Atlanta's the one that I think has a little bit legitimate chance to do something, but Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke, that offensive line, that's a little bit more concerning than I think people are really wanting to believe, but we'll see how it all plays out. And we'll obviously profile a little bit more as far as the season goes and all that fun stuff. So training camp practice tomorrow, 21 is in the Superdome. And then again, we'll see, they have one scheduled for next week. We'll see if that actually happens. They may cancel it, but we'll see what happens from there. As always, thanks again to Justin Burgess for sponsoring all of our training camp videos. Sincerely appreciate it. Guys, Saints.media for all the latest and greatest. Be sure to check that out. We'll have a lot more coming here in the next couple of days and a lot of fun stuff coming from the game. John Hendricks for Saints News Network signing out. Thanks.